We usually talk about great events that occurred in history, but there are incidents that have marks of their presence. This sentence reminds me of an event that is redolent with magnificence and glory. Have you ever heard of Eduardo de Valfierno? Eduardo de Valfierno was a legend. He defied every shibboleth about crime and criminals. He had a reputation, strong one, that never vacillates. He was the one true talent behind the world's greatest theft ever to occur in history. The theft of the Mona Lisa. The story begins in Paris 1911, not with Eduardo, but with an Italian bucolic man named Perugia, who a couple months before the theft had a work contract at the Louvre Museum. As he worked a menial job in the museum, he got to know many menial things, such as the entrances, exits, the guards' names, shifts, and rotations. Little did he know that these useless information would later prove to be quite important. Perugia didn't know that when his contract ends, his real, refulgent destiny begins. Fate knocks at the door of Perugia's house. Eduardo de Valfierno, a criminal mastermind. Eduardo asks Perugia to steal the Mona Lisa painting for $30,000, about $1 million back then. Perugia didn't show any kind of imperturbability and replied with a paroxysm of acceptance, for this was an offer he could never refuse. The story of the theft was quite simple. Perugia broke into the museum and used the advantage of being an ex-employee in the museum by bypassing the security guard and stealing the painting without raising any alarms. The theft of the Mona Lisa made world news. Newspapers wrote vituperative comments on the unknown criminal, and the police ordered a mandate to search for and arrest the thief. Eduardo returns, and Perugia greets him with a very big acclamation. Perugia gives Eduardo the painting, and Eduardo gives Perugia the money. Eduardo then made a strange request. He asked Perugia to keep the painting until he could contact the buyers and arrange a transfer overseas. Perugia accepted Eduardo's request and waited and waited and waited. The story ends here. Now what really happened was that 6 months before the theft, Eduardo had been in collusion with a great painter, Ève Chatroux. Chatroux wasn't a dilettante artist who engaged in any sort of art poorly. He was a cherry painter whose works show great pedantry. Eduardo asked Chatroux to replicate perfectly the Mona Lisa painting 6 times, a job only Chatroux can be entrusted with. Chatroux worked unremittingly to finish the paintings in time. Eduardo then travels to the Americas to find 6 of the greatest art collectors and poses this question to them. Should the Mona Lisa be available? Would you pay $300,000 for it? The 6 collectors agree, and they pay him. Eduardo made a fast increment of profits. He made a profit of $1.8 million. And that's how he paid Perugia with a relatively paltry amount of money now. After 6 months, Perugia stole the painting, and the news was worldwide. And by now, Chatroux was done with the fake paintings, and each collector received a painting. And each collector thought he had the real Mona Lisa. After his many peregrinations in the Americas, Eduardo made a huge fortune using just fake paintings. He didn't need the Mona Lisa. He only wanted the news of the theft. To him, the Mona Lisa itself was worthless. And that was how the Mona Lisa was stolen. As for Perugia, he was a tired criminal who didn't know that Eduardo will never return. Eduardo didn't want to be calumniated for the theft, so he kept the painting with the real thief.
بص يا حسن، انا عارف انك طلبت مدح وعارف ان عيشتك صعبه. انا عايزك تسرق لي الموناليزا وهديك
بجد؟
اه والله.
انا وافق.
خلاص ماشي.
تمام جدا. فشخ. بالراحة. تسمع كلام جنس قوي.
حسن انجز انجز يا حبيبي انجز. اجري تاني، انزل السلم تاني، انزل السلم تاني.
بس خلاص.